Warm welcome to this live studio talk show at World Water Week. Welcome to the audience here joining us live, and warm welcome also to all of you joining us online. I'm delighted to be the host for this next session. My name is Soledad Pinheiro Misa, and now we're going to focus on economic resilience through water resilience, and especially focus on the Yellow River Basin. For that, I have an distinguished panel with me. We have Tom Panella, your Director for Environment, Natural Resources and Agriculture at the Asian Development Bank. Mm-hmm. We also have Josh Weisberg. Did I pronounce it rightly? Weinberg, thank you for correcting. You're Senior Policy Advisor at Alliance for Global Water Adaptation. And we have Sylvia Kardashian. Yes. Your water research specialist, agriculture, food, nature, and rural, I can't even pronounce that now. Can you say it?
Rural development?
Yeah, thank you. Rural development, also at the Asian Development Bank. Welcome. As you know, but maybe not all of our viewers know, that the Yellow River Basin is the second longest river in China. And it plays an integral role in the life of millions. It's for a long time at least, it's been a hub for economic activities, but as many other regions, it's also been challenged by significant changes in climate. And now you chose, which I love, the subject for this, is like economic resilience through water resilience. And also, just to get everybody on board on the topic, I would ask you, Tom, to take us kind of to the region and provide us like an overview of the situation.
Yeah, thanks, Soledad, and it's a pleasure to be here and invited by SIWI for this event. And sure, let me talk a little bit about the current context and what's going on. I think we just really need to look at the last few years to recognize that climate change is here. And its impact is evident, and the importance of economic resilience and water resilience. So we see 2021 in Henan province in China, they had record rainfall. They had over 200 millimeters of rain in 1 hour, the highest ever recorded there, resulting in flooding. Death toll was 398 people. Nearly 1 million people relocated, 15 million people affected. And on the economic side, we're looking at losses of $19 billion. 2022, in the PRC, we have devastating drought. Drier than normal conditions across the PRC and Asia. And for instance, in Sichuan province, you have most of their power coming from hydropower generation. In fact, 80 to 90% of the PRC's hydropower comes from that region. Yet, you saw during the drought, the reservoir levels fell to the point where power could not be generated. Now, this closed industry and, importantly, microchip factories in Sichuan. Huge loss for the community, people out of jobs. But I think more importantly that these microchips are used globally in smartphones, automotive parts, all sorts of electronic devices. So you see this localized regional climate-induced catastrophe having global economic impacts through the interlinkages of supply chain. And again, $8 billion in loss. Conversely, in the same year, you saw Australia and the Philippines having nearly $9 billion in loss from extreme flooding, triple the previous year. So these trends are increasing, and Asia as a whole lost $36 billion, they figure, in 2022 from weather-related disaster. Now, we also see extreme flooding in Beijing just 3 weeks ago. Yeah. Record rainfall. Again, 1.7 people evacuated, and the losses are still coming in. They don't know, but about $15 to $20 billion. So
just because you're getting to it.
So in the long term, what we see is by 2050, Asia and the Pacific could have hundreds of millions of climate refugees, massive economic costs from extreme weather events, water insecurity, and 70% of the global people at risk are in Asia for being displaced by climate impacts.
Wow. It's like, yeah, it's heavy numbers because, and also large to take in. But also just to, before we continue with the rest of the panel, how would you shortly say what are the, because it's, you get like, when you listen, it's like, whoa, it's like, but what possibilities do you see in working with economic resilience through water resilience?
Well, you have floods and droughts, so really you need to develop systems that are resilient to these disasters, both the extreme weather events, but also long-term there'll be changes in the hydrologic regime, and we have to prepare for that through better planning, through better infrastructure, through better spatial planning. So it's going to be a long-term impact, therefore we need to address it in a very comprehensive long-term manner.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to that, of course. But also, and thank you for providing that overview of the Yellow River Basin and the situation in China. And also now if we take it more to a wider context, you, Josh, you work for the Alliance for Global Water Adaptation. How would you describe how climate change is affecting water system in other countries, and what is your alliance? How are you dealing with it?
Yeah, so I think, well, first of all, climate change is really a challenge amplifier, particularly when you're looking at in China. You know, the fundamental challenge is the amount of pressure that you have on the water resources with such a large population, with such a large amount of the world's industrial development happening, you know, that you need water for food, you need water for energy, and you need to manage that. And then climate change makes that even more challenging to begin with. So it's taking away your buffers and margins on this. And generally what you see with climate change is you have, first of all, you have much higher uncertainty. So if you want to look back, you know, for doing your forecast modeling for flooding and things, we talk about 1 in 10-year floods, 100-year floods, those types of terms and ways of doing things are getting less relevant and less possible. But that's the way that we still want to manage things, particularly people within the water sector, right? So now we need new approaches so you can deal with uncertainty. And the response to that is resilient approaches. So basically you're creating your system so it can handle if you get much less water than you expect.
It sounds very logical, but how would you describe for someone? It's like, what is a resilient approach? Practically, how does it look?
So the resilience is the ability to withstand shocks to your system and still be able to keep going, right? So if when these flood events happen, you know, the flood is the flood. The water comes out. It depends where your city is and what your infrastructure looks like, how much damage that happens. So you're starting to build in a way where you can absorb the water, where you can filter it out, where you can handle those things, where you even have the insurance systems to recover from them. That's all part of resilient approaches. And again, it's also if you have the mechanisms in place. If there's water shortages that happen, for example, then you need means where perhaps you're allocating water that was going to agriculture.
Just if I paused you, because I get a bit worried that when you're, no, and maybe just so you can correct me also in the viewers, because you're talking about like you need or we need like something that it's possible, but is it happening right now? You're not talking, it's like we're doing this and this and this kind of countries. You're talking of it more like a thing that could be done. Or am I hearing you wrongly?
I mean, yes and no. So basically the challenge at hand is we have, well, in different places there are different capacities, but we generally have excellent capacity to manage water in different ways. The thing is we cannot just manage water to deal with water challenges anymore. It's how you manage your energy, it's how you manage your food systems, it's how you manage your cities and your infrastructure. That is what's going to be needed. That's why we are working with these things called like water resilience for economic resilience, because our water problems leak into economic problems, which Tom just talked about at length in China. And so that's an approach that you're taking, and yes, maybe it sounds a bit vague, but you are trying to mainstream. So basically within every sector and within all those actions, you're considering how will we cope if there is less water coming in? How will we cope if there's more water coming in, and how are we going to change our allocations and actions?
Okay.
And there's many methodologies and things that we're working with, specific tools. We don't have time
And
to go
specific
into.
programs, because that leads me. Thank you,
Yes.
and thank you for clarifying that. And I know that you, well, coming back to you, I think you raised your hand. I'm coming back to you, so you get a possibility to comment. But first, let's hear from you, Sylvia. And we heard a lot about the current situation, but I was trying to get more concrete on programs that are being done. And I know that you've been working with the Yellow River Ecological Corridor program. Can you tell us more about it and how it's like creating economic resilience through water resilience?
Yes, sure. Before going to that, I would like to take a step back and perhaps also give some data and information on the Yellow River Basin. So the Yellow River is a very large basin. It's the second largest in China after the Yangtze, and it extends across 7 provinces and 2 autonomous regions, and it provides ecosystem services and livelihoods to more than 120 million people. In terms, since we're talking also about economic data, it actually it contributes to about 26% of China's GDP, which is about $3.3 billion US dollars. And so the basin is key for economic development because it's the food basket of China, but it's also a biodiversity spot, and there are a lot of wetlands, especially in the delta area of the basin. So it's important for different reasons and to different people, and globally as well. There are quite a few issues in the basin, and these are the issues that we're looking at when we develop projects in China, and issues concerning water scarcity, concerning flooding. So Tom was mentioning the flooding in Henan, in Zhengzhou, which is the... which
and I would like, and I understand that you want to give that overview. And Thomas also, I just don't want it, like, since time is running up for the situation, but also in the talk show, to go into the solutions.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So in terms of the solution, of course, balancing all these challenges is quite complex, and it really requires an approach that looks more broadly, not only at water, but also at other sectors, which are agriculture, energy, natural resources management, biodiversity, etc. And so this is where the YREC, which is the Yellow River Ecological Program, looks at. The program is funded by ADB, and it started in 2020. It's a large program of about 1.8 billion lending. It's 6 loans, and it also provides technical assistance with 13 projects. So it's important because we're not looking only at investments, but also at technical assistance. So it's important because that provides the capacity building to really to the agencies that we're working with. One of the program innovations is its integrated approach, looking, as I said, not only at water, but also at natural resources, at biodiversity, at sustainable agricultural production, and also at linkages between rural and urban areas. Because rural...
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm just like
No.
kid, and also so curious. And also, if you can mention some of the results, and also because you're describing all the people being affected, all the economy being affected. What are these innovative solutions? What results are the leading to for the people and the economy?
Perhaps I can mention one, a bit of a more like policy result, which is important because then it also it impacts it impacts people as well. And it's a law that ADB has actually supported in the Yellow River. It's the second law after the law that was approved for the Yangtze River. The law really looks at protection of the Yellow River. It looks at quantity, so resolving the floods issues, at quality issues, and also at how at improving ecological development, ecological restoration within the basin. And so the law is actually in the first phase of implementation, and ADB is really supporting the government in making sure that all the actions will be then planned at local scale as well.
So thank you. And it sounds also like the law can always contributing to systemic change, which it's needed to get results. What would you say, Thomas, are like the key things needed to actually create, if you try to summarize, like, and I know it's not easy, but what are the key things needed to create economics resilience to water resilience?
Well, let me turn it around. I'll talk about
Yeah.
the takeaways from the Yellow River program
Yeah.
and what I think is important there. One, not only with Yellow River, but with the PRC, we've been heavily involved in developing their climate change adaptation strategy, which puts in place a policy framework that focuses also on water resources. And then that has been downscaled to provincial, municipal level, and also we're doing a Yellow River climate adaptation plan. So this planning part is important. And then, as we said, taking a landscape approach. This isn't just about water resilience. It's about land and water, their interaction, also the coastal zone and the marine environment. They are all one thing on kind of a source to sea. We see, so the Bohai Sea is part of this. Also, we're going to see sea level rise, so you're going to actually have the oceans affecting freshwater systems. So you have to have this integrated landscape approach. One, a programmatic approach. So Sylvia was saying, it's long-term, it's not a piecemeal project. We're addressing the entire basin, both with knowledge, technical assistance and capacity building, but also the investment. So we're helping farmers use climate-smart techniques in terms of how they do agriculture, more drought-tolerant, also reduce use of fertilizer. We're supporting reforestation and afforestation, which sequesters carbon, but also provides resilience to floods, wetlands. So we are engaging in a lot of physical activities through the investments under this programmatic approach. The other thing is we're really trying to engage the private sector. That's critical. Government can't do everything, and resource-wise, government pales compared to the resources of the private sector. So what we need to do is have them understand the risks they're facing economically from adaptation, get them to invest, and many companies are investing with risk mitigation measures against climate change and to protect supply chains from water, et cetera. And then also they can be a voice to demand better policies from the government because they do face these economic losses.
Okay. Josh, yes.
go
Did you have
ahead.
one more thing? No. Or just,
I'll leave it at there.
okay. And I think like everything, it just feels like we're just scratching on the surface. But Josh, do you have comments on also like what are the learnings from the Yellow River Basin and from China that can be implemented in other regions?
Yeah, so I think the learning from China and from the Yellow River Basin is extraordinarily valuable for the world. You know, as you see with sort of increasing pressures on water resources that we're speaking about climate change, the current situation of the Yellow River might be the future situation in other regions. And the responses from China are impressive, actually. Whether they can go up to the challenge that they face, that is another question, but the sort of comprehensiveness of the water management strategies are, how do you say, I don't know, sincere and quite intensive. I think very big picture, so I know you will interrupt me if I get too specific. What we really have to do is, with climate change, you should be surprised by nothing. So you have to be prepared for your system, however little water is coming in or however much water is coming in, that you know what will happen and you prepare your system so you can withstand that or analyze how wide of a scope you need to do, and it's much wider.
Yeah.
And a simple example to understand, when you're developing hydropower, if you're expecting sort of your water future to be this narrow, because that's what you've been looking at historically, and then it is different, that hydropower plant might not deliver energy, it might be destroying the environment more. So we need to do it at a much wider scope, and that's what's starting to happen, but it's a difficult challenge and stuff. So I think, you know, there's a lot of things we can learn. But I mean, again, the Yellow River, our last point, but like China
really last points because we time,
China transfers huge amount of water from the south to the north and then produces huge amount of food
Yeah.
in the north with those resources. That's an economic planning challenge.
Yeah.
That has to do with people's livelihoods.
Okay.
So they're trying to manage it, but that's the way we need to think of it.
Thank you. Time is really running up, and it's really difficult also to discuss such a huge topic in short time. But it also, in one way, also exemplifies the challenge that we have, that we're dealing with, like very big problems that we need solutions to. I would like to leave the last comment to you, Sylvia, and it's not easy, but what would you say you're looking for that would unlock the potential of driving economics resilience through water resilience?
Well, definitely, it is a challenge, but in a way, we are facilitated in China because the government is very ambitious. So I think the ambition and the leadership is important everywhere, not only in China. And so for us, it's been a little bit of a challenge to bring together all these elements and get perhaps actors and stakeholders in the same table, not only from the central government, because the issues are very local. And so even like the issues are global and local at the same time, and the solutions needs to be localized. And so they need to be tailored to the context where they're faced. So both challenges, but also good lessons. And yeah, we're positive about it.
Oh, that's a great way to sum up this discussion. So thank you so much for everyone joining us online, for the audience here with us, and thank you so much in the panel for also like enlightening us in such a complex issue, but at the same time giving solutions and hope. So thank you, all of you. Yes.